So again, there's my information right here on the screen. If anybody wants to reach out to me for anything, feel free to call, text, email. My imaginary friend that's not here with us today because he's somewhere on vacation with his family is Adam Causey. He's helping me too with the deep officials this year. So some of you may see Adam at one of the later clinics next month. So there's his information as well. So I've been charged to cover the operations and mechanics for how to officiate a varsity football game with the crew of 7. This is indeed a playoff clinic, so we are going to cover only 7-man mechanics. Some of this will be fairly elementary, especially for persons on here that are trainers or part of the training committees in their local associations, but we'll cover it as well. I encourage everyone to stop me and ask questions if you have any, or even make comments if you have any that you feel may be for the betterment of the entire group. So we're going to cover everything from the pregame all the way to every situation within the game, and then some other extra situations that don't necessarily pertain to plays themselves. So pregame responsibilities, field judge, side judge, you're going to instruct your, I like to call them ball management personnel of their duties. Some people call them ball boys. Sometimes they're not always males. So, you can use whatever verbiage you want. I try to give them a little respect, if you will. Some people may call them, ball management directors, whatever you want to call them. But talk to those persons, make sure they understand what your expectations are of them for the contest. I usually tell them, safety first, make sure you can follow me up and down the field, but, try to stay out of the way, especially as we get closer to the goal line, because bodies start to flying a lot more when we get down there. So talk to those people, make sure that they're on the same page with you, and be respectful to them. A lot of times these individuals can be, children of the coaches or things of that nature. So definitely give them the respect that they deserve. Side judge, you can assist with the head line judge with the chains. Of course, this will be dependent upon the head line judge that you're working with and how particular they may be about their pregame operations. And both field judge, side judge, make sure you secure a game ball to start the game with. Right, there's nothing worse that the back judge probably doesn't want to see we get out there right before the opening kickoff and nobody has a ball. And also just ensure that your teams are on the field to start the game. Yes, it is the responsibility of the teams to ensure that they are on the field and ready for the opening kickoff. But let's help them and help ourselves by being aware of where they are if they do indeed leave the field prior to the game, and making sure that we help encourage them to get to the field before the game. Back judge, you're going to certify the game balls. Whatever you need to do that. Some people will actually sign the balls. Some people may bring their own portable air pumps and pressure gauges to check the PSI. If that's what you want to do, great. The school should have something there. But and some back judges may actually trust their field judge and side judge to perform this task. But just as long as you know that it's done, that's your responsibility. And of course, your other responsibility is to make sure that the 25-second, 40-second play clock works. If you are fortunate enough to work at a school that has a visible play clock, you want to ensure that both clock works. Usually there's going to be 2 clocks. If for some reason only one of them is working, then you will notify your referee that we're going to turn the clocks off, because only one working clock creates a competitive advantage for the team that is traveling towards the clock direction of the field. So if only one of them work, you're going to shut them off, and you'll use your your device, whichever device you use, Ready Ref, any kind of watch, whatever you'd use to work the play clock. My recommendation, especially if you use, something like a Ready Ref, every 2 or 3 games or so, change the battery out, right? You don't want to get into the second quarter of the game and your battery dies, right? And also that you bring your device, even if the school has a visible play clock, because again, you may show up and they may not work, or the clock may cut off at some point in the game and you got to go to your backup. So, make sure you got good working batteries and for your own personal device, and check that clock out. If you're fortunate enough to have a play clock operator, make sure that person is testing the clock and they verify with you that everything is in working order. And then for everybody, inspect the field, make sure you don't have any safety concerns, any apparatuses that may pose a threat to your safety. Move anything back, talk to the home team, they got time before the pregame to get anything out the way that may need to be out the way. Meet with the coaches. This is good for helping to build rapport before the game. While it doesn't guarantee you a pleasant evening, it definitely, I do it if nothing else just to project some professionalism from myself, and let the coaches know, my name, and that I'm here to do a good job for them. If they got any questions during the game, feel free to ask me. Whatever you need to do. Only thing I would caution you there is don't spend too long with any coach. Everybody's watching, so if you're gonna spend 2 minutes with one coach, spend 2 minutes with the other. Even if it's your next door neighbor, right? You're there for a business reason, right? We want to be there to have fun, but you're there to conduct business, and you don't want to give off the perception that you may favor one team versus the other. And then, of course, the other thing that we'll do is we'll monitor the area between the teams at the 45-yard lines. Depending on what one team or the other may do, I personally may not be strict with this. If we got one team that's on the field and the other team that's already gone to the locker room, or we got one team that's drifted down to their red zone area so they can run some plays out of some formations. One thing I will say about this is, if it's my recommendation that if for some reason the home team leaves the field and the visiting team stays out there, that you still stay out there, because people may have seen, like, with something online or some college games where you got some teams that may try to go out there and desecrate the logo at the midfield, or make a mockery of the home team. So I would suggest still stay out there. If the home team stays out there and the visiting team goes, then fine, you're probably free to leave the field. Does anybody have any questions or any comments on anything thus far about pregame responsibilities? Anything they want to add? All right, if not, we'll move on to the next part of the game, which is free kicks. So free kicks, field judge, side judge, your initial positions. Field judge is always going to be on the press box side of the field, side judge opposite the press box. I say that because don't usually the home team is going to be on the press box side, but there are a few schools out there that will actually, the home team will be opposite the press box. So if you're going off the teams, you might wind up in the wrong place. So field judge, press box side judge, always opposite of that. And once a ball's kicked, you're going to officiate your outside quadrant of the field. Typically, field judge, side judge, you'll drift down the field 5 to 10 yards. Remember, you got goal line responsibilities. I myself probably never get 10 yards because one thing that I want to do if I'm working field judge or side judge is I want to allow the kicking team players to pass me before I start to move, because that's the team that we're focusing on, right? We're typically not looking at the receiving team. That's usually what the line of scrimmage officials are looking for. downfield. So, we want to see what the kicking team players are doing, kind of key off them. Back judge, you're going to hand the ball to the kicker. I say hand the ball as in, don't toss the ball to him. Go out there, hand the ball to him. When I'm working back judge, I typically like to, I'm going to see those kickers all night. So I want to build a rapport with them as well. I usually will, tell them a joke or something like that. Try to establish some relationship with them. And the main thing is letting them know, hey, don't kick the ball until the referee blows his or her whistle, right? Back judge, you'll always go to the press box side and you'll be on the kicking team's restraining line. And I don't know if I said it, but field judge, side judge, you are on the receiving team's restraining line always. And then once the ball is kicked, you're going to move onto the field, kind of do your banana hook. You'll probably drift down 5 to 7 yards, and then you'll officiate the center quadrant of the field for the side of the field that you were on, right? And also as well, back judge, you likewise have goal line responsibilities along with the field judge and side judge. So for everybody, prior to the kick, you want to make sure you clear your sidelines. Again, no people in the way, no objects, no loose balls that you could fall over, trip. I personally like to stand at the back of the restricted area. I think it helps to keep the players and coaches back, because usually they know, if they're beyond us, they're probably too far. So I stand at the back of the restricted area to not encourage them to come into the restricted area. We're always going to count the kicking team players. Our initial positions for free kicks will always remain the same, even if we're in an obvious onside kick situation, or if we're in a free kick situation after a safety. So we're always going to be, on those restraining lines that I mentioned previously. And we always have goal line responsibility, with the exception of the obvious onside kick situation, which in that case, if for some reason the ball's kicked downfield, then our responsibilities would actually alternate with the line of scrimmage officials, and we would actually be responsible for the receiving team's goal line and spots. Anybody got any questions? Any comments? Feel free to speak up. All right, like I said, I know some of this stuff's pretty elementary, but we got to cover it. So I actually have a clip here of a free kick. This is a pretty standard free kick. There's nothing special that goes on here, but I just wanted to show the positioning of the deep judges. So we got the home team being on the bottom of the field. So that's the back judge that's running off. He's already handed the ball to the kicker. And then we'll just kind of watch how these officials move once the ball is kicked. So the back judge cuts into the field. You can see the field judge probably drifted down about 9 yards or so, watching his area. And we got an end zone view here, so you can see the back judge a little bit more for how we need to be moving on the free kicks. So that's a pretty good example, standard free kick, nothing special there, of what we want to see from the deep judges on free kicks. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Who responsibility is it to make sure that you have enough players on each side the kicker?
That is the responsibility of the referee. The referee is responsible for seeing at the time the ball is kicked, if we have at least 4 players on each side of the kicker.
Okay, I was just making sure because I know once upon a time, well, we had an incident where the referee wasn't able to see it, and our field judge caught it.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that you may see it, and I don't know, how referees or your crew may feel, but since, in my opinion, that's not a foul that, at least at the time that the foul is committed, involves a safety concern. I guess in theory it could become somewhat of a safety concern if that heavy side of the formation plows into the receiving team. But in itself, that's not a, I would not consider that a high impact foul. And so me personally, I'm gonna let my referee live and die with that call, so to speak. Anybody else have a different opinion on that?
Hey, Clyde, this is Tom. As a referee, if I do have one of my deeps or the umpire catch that because for whatever reason, as the questioner brings up, and at the end of the day, we get it right, it's not going to hurt my feelings that someone on my crew called that if I missed it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that you could probably talk about in pregame with your crews, for sure. I mean, it's a good question. So I definitely think it's worth talking to your referee about it. I do think that if somebody could see it well anyway, it probably definitely would be a field judge or a side judge, because they do have that 10-yard gap between where they're at and cage restraining line. Probably be a little bit harder for the back judge or the umpire to catch that. So, definitely if you're the field judge, side judge, that might be a question worth asking your referee in pregame.
And hopefully, again, if that's noticed by the 4 officials up at that end of the field, to the extent that they can get the guys positioned correctly before the kick, that's good preventive officiating as well.
Yeah, we got a couple people in chat saying that, you could possibly get on the radio and tell your referee maybe they, shut it down a little bit later than they wanted to, or, at least if nothing else, let the referee know after the fact, because, maybe they were, having a brain fart and just not considering that on the free kick, and you at least want to let them know so they'll be looking for, for the remainder of the game. So, definitely I wouldn't keep it a secret if you knew it, but I'm just not sure myself personally if I would make that call.
And that's a foul that we shut the play down as soon as the ball's kicked.
Correct. All right, so I got another free kick play here, and I'll start out by asking, does anybody notice anything about this particular play? Anything look odd or?
There is a 5-yard assessed penalty.
So it's very possible we're kicking from the 35-yard line. So this kick may have been preceded by a kick out of bounds or something of that nature. And the receiving team elected to back it up 5 and make him re-kick. It's also possible that we as officials could have placed the ball on the wrong yard line. So I just put that there just to, so you can think, right, to make sure we're in the right spots.
Hey, Clyde, this is Kip. That was my game. It was unbelievable. You may not believe this, but we had a major delay of game. They stood out there and talked to the coaches for like 50 seconds. That's why it's there.
Gotcha. Appreciate the insight, Kip. As a matter of fact, you bring up a good point, Kip, right? I asked this question yesterday at the camp, not that I was expecting to get back similar answers, but, back judges, if we remember, we still got the play clock on a free kick. So that 25-second clock is still in place. It's like, have you ever, I don't know if anyone's ever had it, but have you ever thought about what am I going to do if the play clock does indeed hit zeros on a free kick? What if it's the opening kickoff? Do you flag it, or do you find some other way to mitigate it? I don't know. I can't tell you what you should do, or hopefully you don't have it, but maybe something just to think about and consider to yourself about how you might want to address that. Be a rare situation, but it can happen.
Yeah, Clyde, in this situation, I really delayed my ready because I could tell they were not ready to get started. I think this was the opening kickoff of the second half. And
Okay.
at some point in time, I had to set the ready, and it ran down on them.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I mean, you've seen this play, Kip, but let's watch it. So, opening kickoff for the second half, and we get an onside kick. So we're not in an obvious onside kick situation. So I would ask if anybody cares to speak, right? When you're getting ready for the kickoff, like, what's the first thing that you're thinking about as the kicker's approaching the ball? If anybody cares to speak.
Clyde, this is Kip again. I hope my deep, anybody that's up there thinking onside kick on every free kick.
Yeah, that's how I like to think. Every kick's an onside kick until it's not. But, once the kicker's approaching the ball, I think the first thing we need to be aware of is, what happens to the ball? Does the kicker put the ball into the ground? Or is the ball kicked in flight, right? Because, obviously if it's kicked into the ground, right, we could potentially have the illegal pop-up kick. And, we know that that's primarily an umpire's call, but maybe the umpire doesn't catch it for whatever reason. Back judges, we will be secondary on that. So if we have that, we officiate that accordingly. But if the ball's hit into the ground and it dribbles a few times, then that's something that we don't have to worry about. So definitely know what's happening with the ball when it comes off the tee, if there is a tee, or if the ball's being held. I mean, there's more than one way to perform a free kick. But then once the ball is being kicked, especially on these short kicks, we got to think about a lot of stuff. We're thinking about the blocks that are occurring in that 10-yard zone between K and R's restraining line. We're also considering potentially kick catch interference, first touching, even illegal batting for that matter. Right. So we know that in the event that we have a ball that's legally touched, meaning that either the receiving team touches the ball at any point, or the ball goes 10 yards and it's touched by either team, that if we have a short kick, even though we don't do it often, deep judges, we're going to be winding the clock. All right, that's the first thing we'd be doing. But, aside from that, we got all of those other factors that we got to officiate. So just make sure that you're ready for this situation, every kick. Anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to speak on for this? All right. Moving on. So standard scrimmage plays. Field judge, side judge. Side judge, you're always going to be responsible for the game clock throughout the game. Of course, that being said, I like to, charge all officials for that matter, but definitely the deep officials to be responsible for the game clock as a collective unit. Initial position for field judge and side judge is approximately 20 yards from the line of scrimmage. You can be exactly 20 yards if that's what works for you, but in certain situations, you might want to be a little deeper, depending on where we're at. I try to account for things like down, distance, time in the game, even potentially score if we're at the end of a half, near the end of a half. The teams themselves, and what kind of offenses they run, right? If I got, I'm in week 8 and I got a wide receiver for the offense. We had a touchback off a free kick and we're snapping from the 20, and I got a wide receiver that's already got 1,000 yards through week 7. I might be a bit more liberal with where I start at, versus if I'm on the shorter side of the field, we're snapping from B side of the field, right? I got shorter distance to get to the goal line. So, I may not be as concerned, right? Or if I got 2 running teams, I might not be that concerned, so you just got to kind of take the information that you have available to you to kind of make the determination what's best for you in each situation for where you need to be. I definitely wouldn't, go crazy and line up 30 yards from the line of scrimmage, field judge, side judge, unless it was like some last play of the half kind of situation, and it's going to be a Hail Mary. But, about 20 yards is where we want to be. Back judges about 25 yards from the line of scrimmage. And you're responsible for the play clock, of course. That being said, side judge, field judge, you can be secondary on that as well. If you see it hit zeros and, you counting in your head 1 Mississippi, you might buzz the radio and tell your back judge, hey, kill it. Or you may even, decide to stop it yourself. Your partner may have, had a lapse in brain activity for a moment. So, be aware of that as well, side judge and field judge. Pre-snap, we're going to count the defense every time. I myself, I try to get at least 2 counts in before every play, and sometimes 3. Of course, if we're running a hurry up offense, you may only be able to count once. Sometimes you don't get the count, right? So if you don't get the count, don't signal that you've got the count, right? Don't signal just to signal, but also be aware that there may be some situations where only one of you have gotten the count, or 2 out of the 3, right? So try to count every time and confirm what you have. But, just know that you may have been the only person that got the count. Know your eligible receiver responsibilities pre-snap, right? Your initial responsibilities. We know typically field judge, side judge, you're always going to have the outmost receiver on your side of the field. Back judge, your keys can vary. If we got an even formation, you're gonna always favor the inside receiver on the line judge side of the field. If we have a strong side of the formation, then you're always going to take the inside most receiver on the strong side of the field. And we'll actually have some plays later. We'll kind of touch on that a little bit more. We know as deep officials, while we don't get spots often, we do have spots responsibility inside the 2-yard line going toward Team B's goal line. And then if we have reverse mechanics, we got spots all the way going back to the 2-yard line toward A's goal line. I would say on that, talk with your line of scrimmage officials in pregame, and it's not uncommon for us that if we got long plays that we'll communicate with the head line judge or line judge where the yard line is that the play ended. But the same can be said for reverse mechanics, because when we got reverse mechanics, a lot of times wacky things happen, and we're trying to watch for the blocks, making sure nobody's doing anything crazy. And so, I myself, admittedly, if I'm the field judge or side judge, I may not be exactly precise on where the play ended. I'm going to be in the zip code, but, I'd rather, not miss some illegal activity by the players than get the yard line exactly correct. So I'm also going to rely on my line of scrimmage official to help me out with that. Right. And then we got reverse mechanics. Back judge, you're going to be the last person up the field. right? You're gonna be you essentially turn into the referee, going the other way, right? So you want to definitely watch for those blocks. Don't be in a hurry. Field judge and side judge are going to be responsible for those spots anyway. And anyone have any questions on anything about that? Anything to add just about regular scrimmage play mechanics?
Hey, Clyde, this is Tom. Getting back to initial position of approximately 20 yards, I would really encourage the deeps to, pay close attention to that 20 yards, 21 yards or whatever. When I was on the PEB, we consistently saw deeps lining up 23, 24, 25 yards, the side judge and the field judge on just about every snap, and in some instances on some crews. And when I was on the PEB and I would see that that would almost tell me that the deeps didn't know where to line up. So while I hear what you're saying about on occasions it's okay to get off that 20 yards depending on down and distance or expecting a deep pass or what have you, they really need to be consistent in that approximately 20 yards for pre-snap.
Yeah, I think 20 yards is definitely the standard. But I'm also myself personally, right? This is me talking. I'm also an advocate for doing what you need to do to put yourself in the best position to effectively officiate the play, right? Because we're all different. We all have different capabilities physically. We have different range of vision and whatnot. And so, I know that while we're not robotic, right? So, as much as we'd like to be able to standardize, everything, right? It's not a one size fits all, I'd say. So I'm not encouraging people not to stand 20 yards, Tom, by any means, but I'm just saying, don't be so robotic about that you potentially put yourself in a not so great situation because you were mentally stuck on the 20 yards, right? Like I say, if it's 3rd and 40, right? 20 yards is not going to help the offense. I'm not saying go back to 40 yards, but I'm just saying be aware of the situation and kind of take that into account. But yeah, just being black and white, Tom, yes, definitely 20 yards and 25 for the back judge. I would totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I agree with you. There's going to be certain situations in the game that dictate you to move off that 20 yards, but that hopefully those plays are few and far between.
I would agree. Anyone else have any comments or questions about that besides Tom and myself? All right. All right, so I got a couple clips of some scrimmage plays. First one's going to be a standard running play. See, matter of fact, let's kind of set this up before we actually roll. So I hope to get a volunteer. If somebody could kind of walk us through, the initial pre-snap responsibilities for each eligible receiver, if they can see. So I have a brave soul out there that wants to speak up.
Yeah, I got you, Clyde.
Okay.
So starting at the bottom of the screen, you got what looks to be a pro set. So bottom of the screen, 2x1, the outside number 1 receiver, close to the numbers, he's going to be the responsibility of your field judge. Your number 2 receiver on the line judge side is going to be the responsibility of the back judge, since that's our strong side. And then opposite side of the field, I think, no, we got to have a tight end somewhere. Just kidding. We're double.
I'll tell you,
so
the tight end is actually at the top of the screen. He's hard to see.
Yeah, I see him there now. I was like, we only have one back. That's a problem. No, we've got we got a double. So either way, back judge is still going to have the number 2 guy there on the line judge side. We're going to default line judge side. So the top guy, the number 1 on the outside near the chains, is going to be the side judge responsibility. Tight end is going to have to be the responsibility of our headline judge.
Yeah, and then that running back there,
Yeah, that's gonna be the line judge.
Great. Thank you, DJ. And so I'll just say when I work back judge, I personally like to know where, assuming we have 5, right? All 5 of my eligible receivers are before the ball snap, because what I try to consider is when we have the formation kind of set, who has the ability to go in motion, legally go in motion? And if they go in motion, whether it be left or right, what does that do in terms of who's going to be my initial responsibility if they actually make it outside of the formation? So in the case of the running back, they're able to go left or right, right? So if for some reason this running back goes into motion and goes to the top side of the screen, give me a back judge. What is that? And let's say they get outside the formation before the ball snap. What is that going to do for you in terms of your initial responsibility? Who's going to be your responsibility? Anyone? You want to double down, DJ?
You said the back judge's responsibility.
Yeah. So if that running back in the backfield motions to the top of the screen and makes it outside of the formation before the snap, who is going to be your responsibility at that point when the ball snaps?
Be the tight end up top.
Be the tight end, yeah. So now if that running back motions to the bottom side of the screen and makes it outside the formation, who's going to be your responsibility?
Motion back.
Backfield.
Motion back. Yeah. So and you also have slot receiver who can motion to the other side of the field. If they motion and make it over there outside the formation before the snap, who's going to be your responsibility?
Tight end.
Tight end, yeah. So as a back judge, I try to think about this before they ever go into their cadence, because that just helps me not be surprised and trying to guess, or not saying you're guessing, but just trying to figure out, like, it can happen real quick, right? Motion happens, player makes it outside, ball snap, who do I have? Right. So if you can kind of foresee that before it ever happens, that may help you out as back judges with your initial responsibilities. Anyway, we're going to play the play. It's just a standard running play, and we'll just kind of watch, how the deep judges move on this. Pretty good run. They stay in the back pedal, play ends, and then what do we see the side judge up there doing? Anyone?
He's got the out of bounds activity over there.
Yeah, so we got that play that goes outside. You want to get over there, deep wings, and get the opposing team player, out of harm's way. Escort them. Use your voice if you need to, if anything's going on over there, just to prevent any bad things from happening. So continue to officiate the play even though the play itself is over.
I noticed this is one of those plays where the deep wings are 23 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. And I don't know if this is one of those special plays where they need to be back that far, but I noticed that as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider this a special play, whatever the reason is, they're there, but you can see them in this camera, right? Not all schools are fortunate enough to have this type of view. A lot of times we deep officials get lost on the cameras, but don't assume that to be the case. But you're correct. That's a good observation.
Can I, if you don't mind, real quick, I just want to get my 2 cents on this as far as the positioning of the deep wings.
Yeah.
Especially in a 7-man crew. The way I try to train my guys is, if you are the back judge, you set where everybody else is going to be. So if my back judge is always 25 yards, my deep wing should be 20. And if they're not 20, They just need to get into correct position, because my philosophy is 20 yards is a huge cushion from the line of scrimmage. If you can't stay behind or stay in front of the play and you got a 20-yard lead, personally, you may need to consider a different position, because that's where we need our best athletes especially in high school. We need our best athletes at that deep wing position to cover some of these guys that are just dogs right about now at this stage of the game. And that's just my 2 cents.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would just add to that. And if we're going to follow the manual, which we should, I don't think there's much in the manual. I'd have to go back and check, but there's not much leeway when it comes to the back judge. I believe the manual says the back judge should be 25 yards off the line of scrimmage, for the most part, unless we're talking about those unusual plays. They're set at 25, every play, according to the manual.
Right.
Unless we're inside the 30, and then we're potentially 30 yards away. So,
Exactly.
I think we're talking about something that we could go around in circles about all night here.
Right. I will say the comment about the back judge setting the position. I've seen some back judges, for whatever the reason may be, that have lined up, 30 yards off the ball on, we're in the middle of the field, even more than 30. So I would just caution the field judge and side judge that, not to simply take where the back judge lines up at as a guide, right? Like you can figure out where 20 yards is, and if the back judge wants to, be 29 or something like that, I mean, I'd kind of leave that to them. I wouldn't rely on the back judge completely to kind of set where I'm going to position myself pre-snap.
Understood. But my thing too, deep judges need to minimize their steps, because they take the most out there on the field, and you want to manage the energy that you are exuding out there, especially in the first half of a game in the dog days of summer. You take as less steps as possible. And for me, after doing that position for 15 years, if I'm always at 20, I'm coming in about 5 on a diagonal, I minimize my steps so that I can put most of my effort in throughout the entire night. That's
Right. That's why I made the point that, like, hey, everybody's different. Everybody has different, abilities, and, everybody's not the same age, and everybody has different, levels of experience. So, while, yes, the manual does provide a standard, I personally am not going to, indict anyone, that, may have some slight variation, right? Not completely make up something, but, there may be a reason as to why somebody does something slightly different. And I personally won't hold it against you myself, unless it looks like it just it makes no sense at all, right? So, but let's keep it moving. All right, so here we got a pass play. Anybody want to set this one up as far as the initial responsibilities? We had DJ last time. Can I get another deep person?
I'll give it a shot. On the bottom of the screen, you got number 1, who's the responsibility of the field judge. And at the top of the screen, number 1 receiver is the side judge. Number 2 is the headline judge. And number 3 there on the line of scrimmage would be the responsibility of the back judge. Looks like there's a running back. And he would be the responsibility of the line judge, I believe.
Yep. And we know that, even though we start out like this, once the play starts, it can dictate that we shift our responsibility. So, I'll play this. All right, so I'm going to carry that back. And let me stop it about here. So here we've got the back judge's responsibility is starting to cut across the field. So back judges, are you still staying with that guy? Or are you already transitioning to that number 2 receiver?
No, it looks like that inside receiver is coming into that back judge zone. So he's over.
Yeah. I think right here at this moment, your initial responsibility still isn't free from foul because he's got a guy that's 1.5 yards, 2 yards from him. And then he's also got a linebacker that's starting to look at him. So I don't think you can let him go quite yet. But I definitely would be cognizant of this number 2 receiver that appears to be running some form of a long route, right? So I'm probably backing up, as I'm still paying attention to that slot receiver that's coming over. And then we'll let it keep going. All right, so that guy definitely runs a post. We got any thoughts about the back judge's positioning on this or anything?
He's not deep enough.
Yeah, so I think we could afford to be a little deeper on this, and that's why, as the back judge, we gotta. That's one of the other reasons why I want to know where all 5 of those receivers are, right? So I can kind of take a guess as to what I might be presented with before the play snaps, because the offense is they make the plays where they're designed to fool the defense into thinking that, hey, maybe the pass is going to be short so they can go over the top. So I like to think when I'm the back judge is if for some reason I see my receivers doing nothing, I get nervous because I'm now thinking about, hey, that post route might be coming over my head. So of course, depending on where you are on the field, you can, if you got a long ways to go, you may choose to continue to back up a little bit, back judges. If you don't have that far to go, maybe not so much. Anybody else have any thoughts on this one before we go to the next slide? All right, moving on. So punts. Field judge, side judge, your initial position is going to be on the sideline, not on the field, sideline, no less than 5 yards behind the deepest receiver. And this is straight out of the mechanics manual. So the key there, it says no less than 5, right? So you do have built-in liberties into this mechanic, right? That if you want to be more than 5, then by all means, get deeper. If the ball is you're going to be on the goal line of the ball snap from on or inside the 40-yard line. Also, if you know that a kicker has the ability to kick further than 40 yards, you may also be on the goal line. So you're going to find this out a lot in pregame, right? Hopefully in pregame, you're using that opportunity to observe the kickers and, see how they can kick. Maybe you're observing the wide receivers to see what they can do. Anything that you can use as information later in the game, by all means, take it. Right. So if I see a punter that's consistently kicking at 65 yards, during pregame warmups, if we get to the, we cross midfield anywhere, I'm probably going to be thinking about starting on the goal line. Right. If I got a kicker that, doesn't kick quite as well, maybe not so much. Right. Your initial responsibility once the ball's kicked is going to be the gunners. Sometimes the gunners come from the outside, sometimes they come from the inside. But you're going to be watching blocks in front of the receiver. If you follow the gunners, the one that's the kicking team player or players that are furthest out front are going to be your most immediate means of a threat. right? So you'll kind of follow them, down the field, and you kind of also watch the receiving team players that are in chase mode, right? If they get in chase mode. Big note here is that if we have a fair catch signal by the receiver, that usually that ball is going one side of the field or the other, right? So if you're that offside deep wing, you're going to be responsible for knowing if that fair catch signaler blocked after giving a signal, right? So you need to know that, because ball goes down the field, it hits the ground, and it's going back towards the goal line. Typically, the back judge and the deep wing on that side of the field, they're going to go back with the ball, right? So you would probably be the only person that would know if that fair catch signaler gave a signal, right? So be aware of that. Back judges, your initial position is going to be behind the deepest receiver, 10 yards deep, 2 to 5 yards wide. You'll favor the wide side of the field. If you got multiple receivers, probably just split them. Same thing. You'll be on the goal line if we're kicking 40 and in, but even if we're not 40 and in, if your deepest receiver is on the 10-yard line, you're definitely going to be on the goal line. I would say if the deepest receivers on the 10-yard line, all three officials might as well start on the goal line. And just work to maintain a 45-degree angle, with the receiver, while the ball's in the air, right? And you got to officiate, fair catch, KCI, potentially, it definitely illegal touching, potentially illegal batting, illegal kicking if the ball hits the ground, things of that nature. If we do have a kick and a clean possession or return, once the ball's caught and starts to go afield, you're going to release the responsibility of the ball carrier to the field judge and side judge, and you're going to watch for blocks around the action. And are we aware of who's responsible for spots on scrimmage kicks that get returned? Does everybody know who's responsible? Anyone?
Deep wings.
Deep wings, right? Not the back judge. See a lot of games where the back judge oftentimes is at the spot before the field judge and side judge are. All right, the field judge and side judge are responsible for getting those spots. Remember, back judges, you're the last person that's going to come up, right? You don't want to walk up, but you should be the last person to arrive. It's going to be the field judge, side judge spot, right? We don't need to be in a rush to get a spot or get a spot at all if we're back judges. Any questions about any of that? Any comments about anything with punts? No, usually we get a lot of questions about punts.
Clyde, I got one. Illegal fair catch, not invalid, but illegal. Is the scenarios where that would be called, is that the only one I've ever found is if are after taking possession of the punt, then waves for a fair catch signal. Are there any other instances where you would have an illegal fair catch?
No, not that I'm aware of, Tom. I think that'd be about it. Does anyone else have one that they can think of?
Yeah, that's the only time that can occur is after the kick ends. Yeah. Illegal is after the kick ends, invalid is before.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions about punts? Let's see. All right, we got the manual diagram. This is just showing positioning of the deep officials. We got a receiver at the 10-yard line. So all three of these officials are lined up on the goal line. Everyone else is where they need to be, but we'll actually got some videos for a couple punts that we'll show. So on this one, we do not have a return on this one. I'll tell you that, but does anyone notice anything about the kicking team players in relation to the receiving team players on the line here. Anyone notice anything about this?
One player on R looks to be lined up in the neutral zone. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
Let's assume the line is good. Just kind of the relationship between the two lines. If not, I'll tell you that, so the kicking team players are pretty tight on this one, right? So if I'm looking at this, right, I don't see a clear opportunity for the Gunners to come out of this, without being slowed down. So, sometimes depending on how the receiving team, likes to manage these, right? Sometimes your players that will come out of this and be ahead aren't always on the ends, right? Sometimes they're in the middle. So, if you see this, right, they're pretty tight. You see the receiving team kind of spread out and they look like they're in a good position to block, right? Then, just be aware that, hey, maybe the Gunners or whoever's going to get down the field first is coming from the middle of the field. So go ahead and play this. And sure enough, first guy down comes straight through the middle. So we got a kick, ball bounces. So what do we feel about the back judge and the side judge on this play? Do I need to run it again?
Please.
Comments? Questions?
I think they got a good. Excuse me. I think they did a good job because the kick was threatening the goal line and gave them a good opportunity to see whether or not they had a touchback or not. In a good spot, looks like on the 1 yard line.
Yeah, I think they got a good spot. I think they did a good job boxing in. I would like to see the side judge, just go ahead and make it to the goal line on this. It looks like, he kind of felt the ball was going to fall short of the goal line, but, just because there is the potential for, illegal kicking or batting, I wouldn't want to assume that, this is just going to be a standard possession by the kicking team. I go ahead and stand on that goal line and then, play ends, right? I can always square into the spot on this. So that'd be the only thing. But I think all in all, they did a good job here on covering this kick. So we'll go to the next one. So now on this one, we do actually have a return. So we can see the back judge's initial position on this. I think he's about 11 yards behind the receiver. Side judge up there is definitely 5. Think the back judge has a good angle right now. So we'll see what happens. So pretty standard. I think the can't really see the field judge, but I think the side judge did a good job of kind of hanging out until the receiver started to go upfield. We don't want to be in a rush and pass the play. I think the back judge did a good job too, because if you rush to get that spot right, especially as the back judge, what happens sometimes? Sometimes that receiver decides to make a U-turn, right, and then all of a sudden you could potentially find yourself in the middle of the play. So, I definitely would say don't rush back judges. Wait for that returner to, get a good head of steam and get up the field before you are quick to come up. Make sure back judges that, you got a possession. You want to bean bag that. We don't bean bag muffs. My recommendation would be to not throw your bean bag, but as you're proceeding upfield, drop it on the yard line. If you're skilled enough to be able to toss it every time and get it in the right spot, by all means, go for it. I think it's just easier as you're proceeding up to kind of drop it. Somebody did bring up a good thing yesterday in the clinic. in the session. They said, well, what if you have a possession? So you got a beanbag for that. And let's say you had first touching by the kicking team prior to that. How do you know which beanbag indicates which spot? Does anybody have any tips or anything that they use for that, or have you ever thought about that?
I guess you could have a second color beanbag if you wanted to note it that way.
Yeah, we talked about that. I'm pretty sure we're only allowed to use black or white, so that's definitely one thing you can do. And somebody else mentioned that, well, you've got different shaped bean bags, right? So you know, a lot of people use the skinny bean bag that's, you know, basically a long rectangle, but you also got the other one that's like got a small end and then, you know, much larger end. So, you know, it's something I might actually consider this season, right? If I'm working back judge, I have two different types of bean bags. And I'll know for myself that if I have a situation, you know, maybe even you got a possession and then you got a fumble, right? I'll have an idea of which is which because I'll only use that certain type of bean bag for a certain type of action. So I thought that was a pretty good question that came from yesterday. Anything else on punts? All right, scoring kicks, field judge, back judge. You're going to be under the uprights. We got a field goal attempt or point after. You're going to rule on good and no good on the kick. Note, back judge is responsible for the crossbar, right? So if you got that kick that's flying low, maybe it got grazed or something like that, back judges, that crossbar is your responsibility, right? If you need to step out a step to kind of, you know, get a better view, by all means do it. But I would also say field judges, you know, don't rely on the back judges to see this, right? If you know it's going to be, you know, short, low trajectory, you got an opportunity to check this out as well, right? So if the kick is very short or block, right, it's going to be in the field of play, you think. Be prepared to move, right, and potentially rule on illegal touching or illegal batting, right, especially if we're in a scrimmage kick situation, right, field goal, right. If we are, I'll ask, if we got a kick and it's short, it's going to be in the field of play. Does anybody know the line of demarcation that we have on the field for who is responsible for the goal line, be it the deep wings or the short wings?
20.
20-yard line. So if the ball's kicked from the 20 and out, I shouldn't say deep wings, field judge, back judge, you're going to be responsible for the goal line. If it's kicked inside the 20, then the line of scrimmage officials will be responsible for the goal line. But just remember, back judges, you're still going to be responsible for the end line. So if for some reason there's a fake or something or a botch kick and you get a receiver that's able to make it downfield and into the end zone, while you might have initially moved to the goal line, you may have to retreat. So you still got the end line responsibility. Side judge, your initial position is going to be 5 to 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage in the defensive backfield, and you'll favor the strong side of the formation. I'll stop on that because while, yes, the book says favor the strong side of the formation, I know there are crews out there that will keep the side judge, you know, on the side of the field they're coming from, you know, versus potentially having to cross. I'm not recommending that, but, you know, I guess talk to your local association or your crews to see how they feel about that. I don't know, Tom, you got any feelings on that? You know, I know you're a referee, but
I'm sorry, Clyde, what was the question?
about the side judge, you know, that mechanically the book says to favor the strong side of the formation, but I know there are crews out there that, you know, the side judge may just stick to their side of the field. Being a PEB member, you got any thoughts about that?
No, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't have any opinions on that. I don't think that's that big of a deal.
All right. I will say definitely if we got a swinging gate formation, point after, you definitely want to be on. You're responsible for being on the gate side of the formation, side judges. And of course, once you line up, you're going to officiate pretty much the guard on outside, and you'll be alert for leveraging, leaping, the pull and shoot. Defender, pulling down the offensive lineman so his buddy can go through there and try to make it a good block attempt, right? If I'm the side judge, I kind of like to talk to the players that have the ability to foul there and just let them know I'm paying attention to them. So hopefully they don't do anything. So does anybody have any questions about positioning on scoring kicks? PAT field goal. All right, we'll keep going. So again, we already mentioned this: fakes, mishandle snaps. Who's responsible for the goal line? Side judge, you pretty much just stay in the center of the field and officiate what you can, right, and try to stay out of harm's way. Again, swinging gate formation. So this is very important, right? Especially for the side judge. So if you don't have a holder and kicker in position for a legal scrimmage kick formation, then you will stay at your standard scrimmage play position. Does anyone know what a legal scrimmage kick formation consists of with regards to the kicker and the holder?
I believe the holder's got to be at least 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And I can't remember the other ones.
Yeah, so kicker's got to have a knee on the ground, got to be at least 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Obviously the kicker's got to be behind them, right? So if we don't have that, we don't have a legal kick formation. Side judge, don't drop down, right? And how do we know this mechanically if we've got a legal scrimmage kick formation? How are we being notified of this?
The umpire should signal.
Yeah, the umpire and referee should be given that signal, the rolling of the fist. Hey, I got legal kick formation. All right. So if you don't see that, stay at your standard spots. Right. Now, field judge, back judge, of course, you're under the uprights. Side judge, you're on the gate side if we do have a legal kick formation, and then you'll move in the position of the gate shifts. Free kick after fair catch. So this is a scoring kick as well, right? So we got a free kick after a fair catch or awarded fair catch. Field judge, back judge, you're under the uprights. You got the same responsibilities you would have for other scoring kicks. Side judge, your initial position is going to be on the your sideline on the receiving team's restraining line. All right. Actually, yeah. Oh, that's wrong. Go ahead.
This is Kip. This is the one unusual situation where the side judge goes on the other side of the field.
Yeah, you're right. I misspoke on that. Yeah, so they are on the line just side. Let me go back. Right. So, and then if the ball's kicked downfield and it's going to be short, side judge, you basically just get to where you get to best officiate what you can see. You kind of immediately go in the zone, right? Field judge, back judge, if the kick's going to be short, it's still a live ball. So you got to get to the goal line and officiate everything accordingly. Anybody got any questions about a free kick after fair catch? All right, so we got a clip here. We got a gate formation here. We see the kicker and holder are only, well, the potential holder doesn't even have a knee on the ground yet, right? And he's only approximately maybe 5 yards behind the line, behind the ball. So we know this isn't a legal kick formation. So it takes him a minute, but the side judge correctly goes to their correct position to start this. So I'll just let this go. All right, nothing to it. Any comments or questions on this? All right. So now,
Hey,
Kip,
hey, Clyde, can I ask a question? One more, a question about scoring kicks, long field goals, where the ball's obviously short,
mhm.
lands in the middle of the end zone. Are your deeps coming out with touchback signal in that instance, or at what point do you demarcate, given a touchback signal versus a no good signal when everybody in the stadium knows the kick is short and no good?
For me, if I know it is a scoring kick attempt, then I'm going to give the no good signal. So that's me there, right? I'm gonna get a no good signal, and we know the result of the play is a touchback. So I don't know if anybody does anything different, but that's what I would do if it's an attempt. Anything else? All right, so this might actually be your game again, Kip. But if you all noticed,
Yes, it was.
the ball is actually on the 47-yard line. So this is actually a free kick after fair catch or awarded fair catch. So you can see the umpires on the goal line, side judges on far side of the field judge, back judge are under the uprights. And we get the kick. And unfortunately, it is no good, but happened to find this clip and, just wanted to show it if nobody's ever seen it. Any questions? All right, we'll keep moving. So goal line plays. So somebody kind of mentioned something about positioning earlier with regards to the 30-yard line. So initial position is always going to be on the goal line when the ball snap, on the 25-yard line through to the 7-yard line for the field judge and side judge. You're going to be on the end line once we get inside the 7-yard line. Back judge, your initial position is going to be on the end line if we're at the 25-yard line or inside. And then for everybody, right, you never take an initial position between the 5-yard line and the goal line. So what that means is if we're on the 30, right, we're on the 29, we're on the 29-yard line, right? Back judges don't line up on the 4. You'll go ahead and take the goal line, and field judge, side judge, you can have the 5-yard line. Does everybody get that? So this would definitely be that situation where you wouldn't line up 20 yards off the ball, field judge, side judge. So you're gonna, if you got everybody starting on the end line, right? You got the luxury of maybe having an extra set of eyes that you might not normally have. So if we get any tight plays between the back judge and one of the deep wings, right? Back judge, work with your partner on that side of the field to confirm, score or incomplete pass or whatever it may be. Likewise, deep wings, you get something on the sideline, work with your line of scrimmage officials to confirm the results of that play as well. No need to be in a rush there. And other thing is the closer we get to the goal line, right, the longer we need to stay with our keys, right? So in some cases, you might need to stay with your initial pre-snap keys through the entirety of the play, because a lot of times we get closer to the goal line. That's where we see, the offensive team like to try to do those rub routes, those pick plays, right? And if you're changing keys, you very well may not see that. So just be aware that, definitely when you get in those situations where you got all 3 deeps on the end line, you definitely want to stay with your keys longer. Anybody have any questions or comments they want to add to that? So I actually show a couple plays. Actually, this is a diagram. I pulled this one because this is actually interesting. I want to stop here real quick just to talk about keys, right? So on this play, we got an I formation, which we don't see often too much anymore, but we got one here. But can anybody tell me where the initial responsibilities are for the receivers on this play. Get a volunteer. No one?
I'll take a crack. Start from the right side. I've got the side judge taking the tight end and the head linesman taking the H-back, I guess you'll call him. The back judge taking the tailback, the line judge taking the fullback, and the field judge taking the tight end on that side.
So where's the back judge at?
Back judge got the tailback.
Do we ever have the tailback as the back judges?
I don't know. I took a stab.
Yeah. Anyone else with the back judge?
I'd assume you take that wing back.
All right, so actually the back judge is never actually going to take somebody that's in a back position, right? If we're considering them a back, we don't have them. So what we would actually have here is if we got an even formation on both sides of the ball, the back judge will always go to the line judge side of the field. So in this particular play, the back judge would actually share responsibility of that tight end that with the field judge, so that both officials will be looking at that one person. And in this play, actually, one of these line of scrimmage officials would actually have responsibility for two of the backs here. So I just thought that was interesting that they would actually put this in the manual. So I just wanted to show that real quick. Does everybody get that? Like we never go into the backfield as the back judges unless somebody's outside of the formation and we're considering them a receiver. All right, so I got a couple plays. This one we're snapping from the 8-yard line. So field judge, side judge, they're going to be on the goal line. Back judge is where he needs to be. We actually don't get a playoff here. We got a false start, but just wanted to show that positioning. And on this play, we're snapping from the 6, I think it is. So we got all 3 deeps on the end line. Get a basic pass play. Nothing to it. Any questions, comments? All right, so last slide. So just some other considerations throughout the game, right? Measurements. Hopefully everyone knows what to do on a measurement, but the field judge, side judge, a lot of times typically will kind of work with the down box to make sure they're in the right spot. But field judge, side judge, you could potentially, either of you getting a new ball, most times it'll be the field judge. The field judge, you also kind of work to keep the teams back, clear them out, right? Field judge, side judge, again, it could be, either responsibility, but, most times it's going to be the side judge going to help out with that down box. Field judge getting the ball. Back judge, you're going to be responsible for holding the ball, that's on the ground. And we definitely need to hold it, even if we're on a turf field. All right, somebody asked that question yesterday. Yeah, you need to hold the ball. It could get kicked or, the chains could hit it. And, we got all kind of problems then. And you want to be on the downfield side of the field, shading away from the press box. So, everyone can see the chains when they stretch out. For timeouts, right? Field judge, side judge, you're going to assist your line of scrimmage officials with making sure the team stay in the designated areas during timeouts. Back judge, you're going to time the timeout, and you're going to notify the crew, at 45 seconds that, hey, timeout's about to be over, and you're going to blow again, once the timeout's up. I'd say during timeouts is a good opportunity for everybody to, maybe quickly discuss something that they may need to tell their partners, make sure, confirm all the timeouts with your crew, think about down distance, time of the game, situation, things of that nature. Don't just, use it as an opportunity to kind of zone out, get some water if you need it, but, use the timeout as a productive situation. Fight mechanics, right? So we don't want to see this, but it can happen, right? So I'd say if you can, my thing is if I can prevent a fight, then by all means I will. But if players are already fighting, then we're not going to touch them, right? We're gonna use our voice, maybe use our whistles to try to separate them. But once they're swinging, right, we don't want to risk injury ourselves. We're not gonna. Only time we might intervene is if we got a player that's on top of another player, and that player that's on the bottom of the scrum is in jeopardy of being seriously injured, right? Then we might involve ourselves. But other than that, we're going to let the coaches come on the field, and we're going to let them try to corral their players, and we're going to write down numbers of any offenders that we see and take note of what they did, and we're going to work with our line of scrimmage officials to try to keep other players that are not on the field off the field. All right, so you may see that as well. Somebody did ask a couple days ago, like, well, what do you do if you got a fight that's happening near the sideline and you get a player that comes off out of his bench area to grab his teammate or teammates that are running that way because they want to involve themselves? Do you penalize that player because he technically came onto the field or not? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
No.
We got to know.
Yes, no. If he grabs the opposing player, then you want to penalize him.
Yeah, I think the way I answer that question is, I'm going to consider that kid a good Samaritan. And, in the spirit of the rule, I'm not going to get that guy for that. If he's only a few yards on the field and he's trying to, pull some of his teammates, maybe not necessarily the teammates that are involved, but, maybe some teammates that were heading that way and he wants to prevent them from doing anything. I'm probably going to pass on that. Now, if he runs halfway across the field, that's a different story. But, use your judgment. But, by rule, he would be guilty of some kind of unsportsmanlike act. So, and I just say in general, dead ball officiating, right? Just make sure after the plays are over, right? We watch both teams as they dissipate. After scores, like let's keep our eyes on the scoring player or scoring team. Sometimes they do some antics that we might have to penalize, right? Just make sure every time that the ball's dead, right, that we're working on something, right? We got 48 minutes of game time, but maybe at best we probably got 10 minutes of actual live action. So if you want to be a great official, you got to be a good dead ball official. Anybody got anything they want to mention about dead ball officiating? Right, and last point I'll mention is tracking and recording files. While this isn't mandatory, if you don't do this, I would highly encourage you to do it. Deep officials have, I think, the greatest opportunity to do this. Definitely everybody here wants to work in the postseason, and you can possibly help yourself by having a good file report, being able to present that to the evaluators so they can have a good understanding of what's going on. I like to think like, hey, if you, especially in those first couple rounds, you got an evaluator that they're on their fifth game, right? Their focus might start wavering, and they may not be paying as much attention to detail as they did on game one, right? So anything that you can do to help yourself, by all means do it, right? So I actually had a couple people yesterday that said they actually carry little voice recorders, and they self-record the file information, and for the entirety of the game, and then they'll go back and transfer that to paper at a later time. Whatever works for you, but just I would highly recommend recording the files, keeping a good file report, so you could help evaluators and help yourself and your crew. into the playoffs. Does anybody have any other situations that they might want to mention that we didn't cover, or anything they want to bring up?
Hey, Clyde, I might have missed it. Did you say somebody was supposed to hold the box to the front of the stake on measurements?
Side judge.
Side judge. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? So if nobody else has any questions, I mean, I'll ask questions. Is there anything that you all did see that you feel like, maybe was, not necessary that we could pull out, maybe for, the clinics later, or any information that we didn't cover that you feel like should be covered? Anything, or any general questions about anything?
Just a couple of questions about on free kicks, winding the clock. So, and I think you stated this earlier, the only time the ball is touched and we're not winding it is if K touches it before it goes 10 yards. Is that correct?
Correct.
All the other, okay. So in the instance, like a couple instances I'm thinking about, maybe you got a squib out of bounds, right at the sideline, or touches it inbounds and the ball, immediately goes out of bounds. We're just going to wind it and then immediately stop the clock in that order. And the same for if a receiver, is fielding an onside kick attempt, he goes to the ground and possesses the ball in one motion, winding it and then killing it.
If they possess it in one motion
On the ground.
and then go ground, yeah, I'm gonna burn 1 second off the clock.
And the same with the first instance where he touches it, just inches before it rolls out of bounds.
Yeah, and we'll burn at least 1 second off the clock.
Okay.
I guess I was thinking while you were talking, you could have some scenario where the kicking team player blocks a receiving team player into the ball, right? If we have that, then we're ignoring that touching.
Right.
So in that regard, right, the ball's not legally touched, so I guess you wouldn't wind it there, but it can happen, but it's probably not likely.
Oh, thanks.
Anything else from anyone? All right, well, it's late, so I appreciate everyone for coming. And then you have any questions about anything? You have my information up there. Again, with GFOA, feel free to reach out to me if you got any questions or anything you feel like you want to add or something. And I appreciate everyone being here, and thank you for your time.
Hey, Clyde, some guys signed in. Are we to sign in on this or no?
I am not taking roll for this.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Because I will have a transcript of the chat, so everybody that put their name in the chat, I'll be able to see it. All right, so thank you all. Feel free to sign off.
Thanks, Clyde.
Best of luck this year.